All right, let's finish up chapter 17 here and move into the 21st century. In the period between 2000 and 2007, an extremely rapid advance in technology combined with an equivalent lowering of costs opened up the possibilities of innovative ways of solving problems and created new opportunities for publishers, marketers, agencies, and for those that enable them. Well, what specifically? Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the big ones would be Google. It rolled out its AdWords and AdSense programs, making it easier for businesses to monetize their web presence and ad networks packaged premium inventory at scale. Google really making use of programmatic and the algorithms and such with these two programs. AdSense was a program in which enterprises could display Google ads on websites and earn revenue from hits that generate traffic for the Google search engine. So a company may have a website and allow Google to place ads within its website. Google manages all of that for them, and there's profit sharing between Google and the host website. Google AdWords was Google's paid search marketing program, the largest such program in the world and in most individual countries. Basically, that companies would pay for Google to make sure that their searches wound up at the top whenever you search for something using the search engine. Behavioral ad targeting and contextual ad targeting enabled advertisers to focus more precisely on their target audience. Behavioral targeting puts ads in front of people who should be more receptive to a particular message based on past internet behavior. So, watching what you're doing online through the use of things like cookies, mobile device IDs, able to see where you've been, what you were doing when you were doing those things, and based on that information, be able to provide you with certain kinds of ads. Contextual advertising is a form of targeted advertising for ads on websites or other media, and the ads themselves are selected and served by algorithms based on the content displayed to a user. So rather similar things here, all based on tracking what you're doing online and providing you with what they believe for you would be relevant advertising content. We get into the era of programmatic in its formal sense, starting in the year 2008. As a necessary condition for the programmatic era to really take hold, there had to be a move to commodify and commoditize ad inventory and the processes of buying and selling that go with that. When we talk about commodification, we're talking about the standardization of an asset such that it can be compared to another like-kind asset in using specific and consistent dimensions and standards. Kind of goes against what we've been talking about in terms of advertising being a commodity. In essence, that's kind of what programmatic does, is it turns it into a commodity. Meanwhile, commoditization is making an asset widely available and interchangeable between multiple parties at scale. Ad verification went from nice to have to need to have for advertisers and publishers in this era. Ad verification businesses are services that offer to validate that an advertiser's ad was delivered to the agreed upon specification in an advertising insertion order. In other words, proof of performance. Real-time bidding is a technology that uses highly specific data, algorithms, and automation to enable marketers to bid on ad inventory in microsecond auctions during the time in which a user's web page loads, which might be anywhere from just certain milliseconds, definitely less than a second. An advertiser or an agency places a bid for a specific ad impression, which is then served to the user once the page is loaded. So you have these very, 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 very quick auctions that happen within the blink of an eye, which is how these things are manifested, deciding which ad gets placed in front of you. And yeah, all of this happening quicker than a snap of a finger. Programmatic is auction-based because electronic auctions are the most effective and efficient way to achieve optimal price discovery by both buyers and sellers. So the company gets basically the most it possibly can for a particular ad at that particular moment, and the buyer is buying it at the most effective price in terms of they're beating out their competition by offering more, but they're not paying more than they absolutely have to. Programmatic 2.0 over the past 12 years or so, because of the ubiquitous nature of internet connections, smartphones, tablets, and other technologies, massive amounts of information is collected and stored constantly, which has led to the rise of big data. Other technologies such as cloud computing and distributed computing are changing everywhere. Basically, cloud computing is that in which we're putting all of our information onto servers that are not physically accessible through us. We're used to cloud computing in terms of maybe using a service like Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. Well, a lot of the data that is available that's used in these sorts of scenarios is also being stored on these types of remote servers. Marketers and agencies needed to get a better understanding of their market, which led to the development of data management platforms, or DMPs. These services provide a marketer, an agency, or a trading desk with a single integrated view of all campaign and audience data, helping with overall management and analysis of that data. Basically, what you need to know here is that these DMPs are what help to keep this data stored in a database, be able to interface with that data, and help it to make sense to users and to various programs. Agency trading desks developed as a centralized or quasi-centralized center of programmatic trading excellence. You can read more about that in your textbook. A private ad exchange is an exchange through which a publisher can directly auction and sell its ad inventory. An invitation-only auction sells a type of inventory that is unreserved, has auction-based pricing, and incorporates a one seller to a few buyers type of participation. This would be effective if you're trying to make certain availabilities open to just a select number of advertisers, and there's various reasons that you would do that. Ad fraud and ad blocking. Ad fraud is defined as the deliberate practice of attempting to serve ads that have no potential to be viewed by a human user. In other words, you're selling advertising, but you're putting it on websites or web pages that have very little traffic going to them. An ad blocker is software products that prevent ads from appearing with the content that the user is intentionally viewing, and these are used on the consumer end to try to inhibit devices tracking them or trying to sell them, or just because they find ads annoying. There's many reasons that people will block ads, and there's a certain amount of questioning as to who's in the right when it comes to people being able to use ad blockers. Should they be able to? Should they not? And what rationale do you put behind that? Hackers and criminals have found vulnerabilities through the internet infrastructure and have successfully been able to inject malicious code into many ads. These ads are known as malvertisements and result in the spread of viruses on consumer machines of all types. So it's that fair warning that when you're online, be careful of what you click on. Even if something looks legitimate, sometimes there are some bad actors out there. It's best to keep your antivirus in check and, be critical about anything that you click on. Header bidding is an advanced programmatic technique in which publishers offer inventory to multiple buyers before making calls to their ad servers. Some of the pros and cons of this: when the marketplace is transparent, advertisers understand the biases and can work around them as needed. But when the process is not transparent, questions such as what steps are taken to prevent ad fraud, and how do they measure success, and what's the price for each part of the process? You can't easily answer those questions because it's not necessarily tangible to think about those things, because the information on which those standards are placed winds up being a bit nebulous. The available types of programmatic and media channels, there's a good explanation in the exhibit in your textbook. But briefly stated, direct is a traditional insertion order based ad campaign delivered programmatically, but bought and sold between humans with a very specific advertiser goal mindset. Product purchase, level of brand awareness, all those sorts of things. This is a lot of what we've been talking about in this course to this point. Programmatic direct is a way to automate direct ad buys for set campaigns. Programmatic direct is the transactional methodology of automated direct sale of guaranteed advertising between advertiser and publisher. So it's basically when salespeople use the programmatic as a tool to help the conditions of a advertising contract come to fruition. Automated Plus is a type of inventory that is reserved, has fixed pricing, and incorporates a one seller to one buyer type of participation. Guaranteed direct, also known as automated guaranteed, premium, or reserved. A buyer knows the desired audience and content, and buyers and sellers directly negotiate deals. Programmatic guaranteed is a one-to-one sale with fixed pricing and reserved inventory that is processed automatically, cutting out the middleman, just kind of pretty much doing everything online, if you will. Private marketplace is an RTB auction, real-time bidding auction by invitation. Invitation is how that happens. One or more publishers invite buyers to bid on inventory, and the sites where all the ads will run is known to the buyers. And then open exchange, also called open auction. This is where many buyers can bid on the inventory of many different publishers in an auction format. So you're not necessarily limited to one particular platform or website. This is where you're buying multiple different opportunities. Non-O&O audience extension. O&O standing for owned and operated here. Audience extension is an application of behavioral targeting. Audience extension allows advertisers to target a premium site audience. Meanwhile, non-O&O audience development, this is where we're talking about activity that is undertaken specifically to meet the needs of existing and potential audiences. Most often, the term refers to using paid and earned media to drive site traffic to a publisher's digital property. So you're basically taking the opportunity here to reach out to the various audiences that you want to reach out to and drive them towards your own online properties. 3 different types of media auctions. There's the first price auction. This is what we generally think of as, kind of the more traditional auctions where it's the highest bidder that wins. Sometimes there might only be one bid that happens, and that one bid is the winner. Second price auctions, this is what Google does. So basically, the winning bid is the bidder that bid the highest, but they're actually going to pay the price of what the second highest bidder had bid plus 1 penny. So it's kind of a clarification of what the textbook says. If, for example, you bid $100 and you're the highest bidder, you win the auction, but the bidder that came in second place bid $50. So the price to you, the winning bidder, is going to be $50.01. Hopefully that makes a little more sense than the way that it was worded in the textbook. So you're actually paying the price of the second highest bidder plus 1 penny. Then in futures, there's a bid now, buy now, and deliver later system in place. This offers a hedge for both the buyer and the seller, but it also requires market liquidity. In other words, that there's just a lot of inventory out there. Typical tag-based approach to bidding. In tag-based integrations at publishers, the system is designed in such a way that every impression gets the highest competition possible, which requires the demand partner to pay the maximum cost per thousand for an impression. And then in typical header bidding approaches, This is designed so that header bidding demand partners face competition from the tag-based demand partners as well, and this type of bidding adds real value. So you can see that there is, even after going through the chapter here, there's a lot to digest, and really a lot that even if you were to ask those that run these particular platforms, it's really hard to describe and kind of visualize these things. The main thing for you to know in this chapter is that the computers are used in such a way that it helps to automate many of the processes and tries to do so in a way that there's the intentionality of reaching your target audience, and that advertisers, for the most part, are generally only going to pay when, at the very least, only when their ad is shown to somebody, but more so if a consumer actually clicks on the ad and interfaces with it. Programmatic also used in traditional media in terms of scheduling radio and television advertising, while the measurements for cost per click obviously would not be there. There are measurements in place to determine what types of programming content are best suited for a company's audience, and the algorithms try to help to match those things and put those things in place. We'll try to answer your questions as best as we can when we get together. In the meantime, turn in your notes and your study questions and send in your comments and questions, and we'll muddle through it together.